Hello students, welcome back to my class. Today we are going to continue with Charles Lamb's essay, The Praise of the Chimney Sweeper. So last time we had seen in his essay his presentation of the chimney sweepers, but in a very romantic and whimsical mood, that he had introduced the chimney sweepers as the adopted Negrites, like the priests early in the morning in the pulpits, compared with the birds, and also he had presented them in all different aspects of romantic imagination, making the most disliked part of the British social experience into something which can be discussed, which can be interacted very interestingly. He presented the problems, the plights, the sufferings of these hapless children in such a manner that the reader finds it both alluring and at the same time feels the essence of pathos underlying his irony and humor. So, today we will look at the other part of the essay, which begins with Lamb's assertion that most of these young chimney sweepers who had been employed by their leaders are the products of some petty crimes. He had strongly subscribed to the fact that most of these young children, probably they belonged to well-to-do families, good families, but they were abducted, they were taken and employed into this trade when they were very young to realize their own situation, their reality. So he is telling that it is like some remnant of gentry not quite extinct, a badge of better days, a hint of nobility, and doubtless under the obscuring darkness and double night of their forlorn disguisement oftentimes lurketh good blood and gentle conditions derived from lost ancestry and a lapsed pedigree. So he is telling that sometimes coming across such young chimney sweepers, he realized that somewhere within them is lurking, is visible what? Good blood and gentle conditions. They are coming from the gentry, derived from lost ancestry, maybe from good ancestry or a lapsed pedigree. So, most of the children, they were not exactly poor, they are not coming from poor families being forced into these conditions for their penury. Rather, they had been the victims of crime, abduction, and they had been pressed into this work for exploitation by their leaders. And I fear to clandestine and almost infantile abductions, the sheets of civility and true courtesy so often discernible in these young grafts. So, why he is telling this? Because oftentimes he observed them and found within them these qualities from good pedigree, good ancestry, good family background, or good blood. And he is telling that plainly hint at some forced adoptions, many noble Rachels mourning for their children, even in our days, countenance the fact. And he is telling it can be proved proved by what? That many Rachels. Rachels is a character taken from the Bible. And Rachel is the unfortunate mother. So here, the unfortunate mother who belonged to good families, gentry, sometimes Lamb comes across such reports that they lament the disappearance of their children. So Lamb has suspected and Lamb has asserted also that there is some connection between these abductions and the chimney sweepers who exhibit rare gentlemanship or good breeding or good sense, etc. And the recovery of the young Montagu be but a solitary instance of good fortune. And he is also supporting his argument with another historical example. Montagu means he was a young boy of a royal family who had disappeared, and he was discovered in some distant part and he was brought back. But everyone is not fortunate, and Montagu's mother, the lady, she every year threw a party for such unfortunate children because she realized that her own child also went through all these ordeals and fortunate enough to be discovered. So, by providing these examples, Lamb is trying to sustain his belief that most of the children, they belong to good families and they were the products of abduction. And he is providing another example to sustain his theory. In one of the state beds at Arundel Castle, a few years since, under a ducal canopy, encircled with curtains of delicatest crimson with starry coronets inwoven, folded between a pair of sheets whiter and softer than the lap where Venus lulled Ascanius, was discovered by chance after all methods of search had failed at noonday, fast asleep, a lost chimney sweeper. This is also one incident, historical incident, where in one of the castles, Arundel Castle, which belonged to the Sussex, and there once one chimney sweeper was lost. After much search, finally the chimney sweeper, that young boy, that boy with the old dirtiness in his body, was discovered in the very bed of the royal family. So that bed he is describing, it was the most delicate bed, which he compares with the myth of Ascanius. Ascanius, who was the grandchild of Venus, and Venus made him sleep and in his place sent Cupid. That was a story. I am not going to tell the story. You can read the myth. So he is comparing the bed with the most delicate, with the most white and perfect bed of a royal family. But under the lap, this boy was found. And he is telling this boy could have found the carpet in the family as the most comfortable bed, because he was accustomed with the very poverty-stricken, deprived life. But why this child went to the bed? That means Lamb is trying to argue that this child was somewhere, some point of his time, was accustomed with such beds. Therefore, he went into that soft bed and slept there. So he is telling that, so creeping between the seats very quietly, laid his blackened head upon the pillow and slept like a young Howard, as if he was the descendant of that Howard family, the Duke So he slept in that ducat bed comfortably. So from where he got this confidence, from where he got this sense? That means it was there in his own experience. Such is the account given to the visitors at the castle, but I cannot help seeming to perceive a confirmation of what I have just hinted at this story. A high instinct was at work in the case, or I am mistaken. So he is telling this is the story it was told to all the visitors who visited Arundel Castle. But I am looking at, that means Lamb is looking at the unmistakable part of this story, that some of these chimney sweepers belong really to high families, aristocratic families, or good pedigrees, and they had been appointed or they had been employed by their leaders, who either purchased them from the abductors or who are the abductors themselves. So he is arguing that doubtless this young nobleman was allured by some memory not amounting to full consciousness of his condition in infancy, when he was used to be left by his mother or his nurse in just such seats as he there found, into which he was now but creeping back as into his proper incunabula and resting place. So somewhere that memory, somewhere that past led him into such bed and into such an incident. By no other theory than by this sentiment of a pre-existent state, he is calling it as pre-existent mental state of that boy. Can I explain a deed so venturous, and indeed any other system so indecorous in the tender but unseasonable sleeper? So in this way, Lamb is trying to prove the idea, the theory, that most of them belong to good families, good breeding, good ancestry, but they are employed here. And Lamb is not only bothering about the children who are coming from good families. Lamb is a humanist. He is a romantic lover of mankind. So his feeling is for the poor also. So he is not making a discrimination. He is only trying to prove a point that criminality is also a part of the fate of these young chimney sweepers. And then he is going to another anecdote, another part of his experience of the chimney sweeper. My pleasant friend Jem White was so impressed with a belief of metamorphosis like this frequently taking place, that in some sort to reverse the wrongs of fortune in these poor changelings, he instituted an annual feast of chimney sweepers, at which it was his pleasure to officiate as host and waiter. So one of the school friends of Lamb, that is Jem White, he was also corroborating with the theory of Lamb. He was also believing in the same theory. And he was impressed by the metamorphosis, the change of these young chimney sweepers, ones who were so delicate creatures at their home, so comfortable, and now they are leading such miserable and deprived life. So out of his sympathy, out of his empathy, every year he arranged a feast, annual feast, and he was there officiating that feast, and he was also the waiter. So he did that work for the chimney sweepers to make them happy at least for one day in a year. It was a solemn supper held in Smithfield upon the yearly return of the fair of St. Bartholomew. Cards were issued a week before to the master sweeps and about the metropolis, confining the invitation to the younger fry. So every year this annual feast by Jem White was held in Smithfield, in the open Smithfield, just opposite in the return of the fair of St. Bartholomew. St. Bartholomew is a Christian saint and a fair was organized every year in his respect. On the return of that fair in the Smithfield, James White organized this feast. And how he organized? He would issue the invitation cards to the master sweeps, the leaders. And particularly he impressed that only the young people, very young chimney sweepers are invited. But sometimes, Lamb is telling that sometimes in the party, even the senior ones, they are so tempted that they also creep into this crowd of the young chimney sweepers celebrating one day of their pleasure in Smithfield, organized by James White. And sometimes they are caught and they are removed from the fair, because James White wanted to make the life of these very young chimney sweepers pleasant, at least for one evening. The place chosen was a convenient spot among the panes at the north side of the fair, not so far distant as to be impervious to the agreeable hubbub of that vanity, but remote enough not to be obvious to the interruption of every gaping spectators in it. And Lamb is telling that James White was very careful in organizing this party in a very secluded place where others cannot interfere. But it is not a very desolate place. It is a good open space where the young children can enjoy at least one evening in the year. The guests assembled about 7 in those little temporary parlors. 3 tables were spread with a napery, not so fine as substantial. So he is describing that in that party there will be 3 tables. In one table there will be James White, in another Lamb, in another woman whom he is calling as Fat Ursula, because Ursula is a very common name for those women who sell porks and sausages. So here the name is not the real name, but it is just a reference to any woman who prepares the food or who distributes the food. So in this way 3 tables were arranged every year in that particular evening, and all these children they group around these 3 tables. But the most popular is the table of James White. So Lamb is presenting this annual feast organized by his friend James White in a very indulging and glorious manner. And he is also describing with a very friendly manner that how James White himself was so friendly, so indulgent to these young chimney sweepers and encouraging them to celebrate in their own manner. And he invites these young children to crowd around, and it was a pleasure to see the sable youngsters lick in the unctuous meat with his more unctuous sayings, how he would fit the titbits to the puny mouth, reserving the lengthier links for the seniors, how he would intercept a morsel even in the jaws of some young desperado, declaring it must to the pan again to be browned. The young chimney sweepers, they take their food offered by James White in their own way, in their own greedy manner, because they have come across such food once in a year. And sometimes they are also demanding that this meat is not properly cooked, you cook it. And James White indulges them without any frowning, without any seriousness. He wants that these people should enjoy. He behaves like their indulgent father, and gently he would deal about the small ale as if it were wine, naming the brewer and protesting if it were not good, he should lose their custom, with a special recommendation to wipe the lip before drinking. And he also teaches them the mannerism of such parties in a very friendly manner, and he offers them the ale, and he says that you make the toast And toast in the name of the brush supersede the laurel. It is not the toast to the king, queen, though they are being encouraged to do that, but they understand very little about it. And for that reason, James White also encouraged them to toast their own brushes, the cleaning brushes of the chimney. And Lamb is telling that sometimes it is lauded as more superior than the laurel, the rewards of the writer or the painter, the great poets, as if these people are the special people on that special occasion. And he also says, "Gentlemen, give me leave to propose so and so," which was a prodigious comfort to those young orphans, every now and then stuffing into his mouth. And he also goes on indulging them by bringing forward one after another stuffs he had cooked, and these young children putting into their mouth as if they won't find it next day. So they put it in a greedy manner, in an indulgent manner, as if their parents are there. And indiscriminate pieces of those reeking sausages, and from their mouth the sausages sometimes coming out, and Lamb is giving a very vivid picture of this celebration, where all these young children, they come, they move around, they demand their food, they compete with each other, they demand the food to be more cooked or more sausage to be given, and which pleased them mightily and was the savoriest part, you may believe, of the entertainment. And Lamb is telling that that is the most savoriest part of the entertainment, that these children are happy, they are demanding, they are enjoying themselves. That is the bringing back their childhood, at least for one evening in this Smithfield feast. But James White is extinct. Finally, Lamb is coming to the pathos, the sorrow. James White is extinct. He carried away with him half the fun of the world when he died. When he died, he took away half of the fun of this world. Why? Because these children in London, they became orphaned for final time. They got deprived from this one evening of entertainment, indulgence in a year. His old clients look for him among the pens, and now these young children, they are searching for James White. Every nook and corner, behind every plants in Smithfield, and missing him, reproach the altered feast of Saint Bartholomew, and they also reproach the altered feast of Saint Bartholomew, and the glory of Smithfield departed forever. So the glory of Smithfield, James White, and those fun parties, those indulgent parties of the chimney sweepers are gone forever. So Lamb is lamenting. Lamb as a personal essayist, bringing not only different moods, different whims, but also through different anecdotes, through his personal experiences, is indulging the reader to enter into his mind, to enter into his heart, his feelings, what he feels for the chimney sweepers. When we read Lamb, we also feel the same. So that is the achievement of Lamb as a personal essay writer. He is not well organized like Hazlitt. His sentences are sometimes small and sometimes very lengthy. But the use of these sentiments through irony, through the greatest range of humor, from the most innocuous to the most pungent, and pathos, makes Lamb one of the most liked, most loved writer in English essay genre. In the genre of essay writing, he is the most loved one. So, you can prepare for your exam by taking the question Lamb as a personal essay writer, or the question can be asked compare Lamb with his contemporary Hazlitt as essay writer. Question can also be asked about the party organized by James White or the Smithfield Annual Party. Question can be asked about the theory of Lamb about the ancestry or the background of most of the chimney sweepers. And the question also can be asked about the different aspects of chimney sweepers in contemporary English life as presented by Lamb. So, I hope all of you will prepare very well by reading the essay thoroughly. If you read it thoroughly, you can thoroughly enjoy, and at the same time, all these incidents, anecdotes, whatever is presented, experiences shared by Lamb will be vividly remembered by you. I hope you will do justice to Lamb and his essay. Thank you.